Imperium vehicles. Scout Runner. Weapon DF Set Laser Cannon. Propulsion Nebulite Microreactor. Precursors of their heavier cousins, the Plasma and Tachyon Tanks. The original Scout Runners had been created as armored single-manned patrol craft to support light infantry actions during the Helian disturbance on Physis, nearly 20 years before the emergence of the Freedom Guard, refined and refitted with a new propulsion system and special long-range scanning equipment. The Scout Runner became the perfect tool for probing enemy defenses and uncovering the strike bases of Freedom Guard raiding parties. The Plasma Tank. Weapon 3000 NP Plasma Cannon. Propulsion Titanium Accelerator. Plasma tanks became the principal symbol of Imperium enforcement during the early years of the Freedom Guard uprising. Their smooth black outline was the product of the streamlined design concept that was the trademark of their manufacturer, Insignis, and gave the tanks an especially cold, inhuman appearance. Tachyon Tank. Weapon 5000G Tachyon Cannon. Propulsion Titanium Float Reactor. The most awesome war machine ever created by Insignis for their Imperium clients. The Tachyon Tank, with its revolutionary field absorption armor and powerful Tachyon cannon, stood as the unchallenged behemoth of the battlefield for nearly a year, until the Freedom Guard was able to counter with new technologies of its own. Even when cut off or surrounded, the Tachyon Tank was far from helpless. The Imperium High Command directed that it be outfitted with a powerful nucleonic disruption self-destruct mechanism to prevent its ever being captured and replicated. Cyclone. Weapon WAT T-11 Neutron Cannon. Propulsion Pulsifer Reverse Injection Core. Small military aircraft had been largely unnecessary for the Imperium until the advent of the Freedom Guard insurgency. In 2609, Insignis, the Imperium's principal military engineering firm, offered a new design, a light, fast attack flyer that could brake and spin at full running speed and come to a dead stop in midair. These Cyclones proved the perfect tool for chasing down swift Freedom Guard spider bikes as they scurried back to their hilltop hideouts after raiding expeditions. Shredder. Weapon Modified Quarry Saw. Propulsion Nebulite Air Mount. Perhaps the best example of the Imperium's twisted ingenuity, the Shredder existed in fantasy before it existed in fact. As legend has it, many years ago, unruly prisoners interred at the old Jovian detention facility were shipped off to work in the quarries of Callisto. Those who were captured trying to escape were said to have been slowly dismembered in front of the other prisoners, with huge circular saws used to cut out large portions of rock. While this may never have actually happened, the stories were well known to generations of misbehaving children, descended from ranks of the old exploratory corps. Imperium General Philene Inhexlar decided it would be clever to revive these rumors as a prelude to the introduction of the frightening new anti-infantry weapon that the old story inspired. Many of the earlier models of Hexatar's new shredders were in fact manufactured using retooled circular quarry saw blades. These fiendish unmanned discs of death cut down scores of Freedom Guard raiders in their first action on Terran. Scarab. Weapon Taro-Lined Heavy Strike Cannon. Propulsion Air-Cooled Titanium Accelerator. The Scarabs, or Self-Contained Armored Ranged Artillery Battery, were one of the earlier projects undertaken by Insignis. They were actually little used in the first years of the conflict because Imperium commanders had such difficulty identifying fixed Freedom Guard targets at long range. In the defense of Coralbad, however, they proved to be of great value when they were used for the first time in combination with new Imperium recon drones, supplying them with the necessary targeting information. Scarabs were also the first vehicle to employ Insignis' experimental exoskeletal shielding. The shield provided extremely effective protection, but was impractical for use with tanks because it prevented movement and weapon fire. Invader Troop Transport. Weapon DF Set Heavy Laser Rifle. Propulsion Nebelite Microreactor, a common sight in all colonial administrative districts. These sleek hover transports could rapidly bring in packs of Guardians to any spot where there was trouble, modified at the time of the Freedom Guard uprising to include a heavy, turreted mounted laser rifle. The invaders were often able to wade into ranks of heavily armed Freedom Guard mercenaries and deliver the passengers into the center of the battle. Mobile Air Defense, or MAD. Weapon Orbitrans Stingers. Propulsion Titanium Accelerator. The new MAD's Mobile Air Defense units came off of the Insignis production lines just in time to help defend Imperium tanks in the Siege of Indra against airstrikes by heavy-hitting Freedom Guard outriders. The MAD's weapon is of the more curious employed by the Imperium, a charged bladed orb that could, if scoring a direct hit, cut an outrider or skybike to pieces. Most Insignis vehicles were equipped with hover capability, and MADs were no exception. They were excellent for defending artillery batteries from sudden air attacks. Sky Fortress. Weapon Ariax Plasma Compressor. Propulsion Pulsifer Reed Reactor. The Imperium High Command was determined to use every weapon at its disposal to ensure that their campaign to take Gunawan was successful. To this end, they unleashed their newest terror, the Sky Fortress. These massive, ring-shaped behemoths floated over the landscape as placidly as old-style dirigibles, but this image of tranquility was shattered when they let loose a discharge from their massive plasma compression weapons. Despite the tremendous firepower, the Sky Fortress was ponderously slow and made an easy target for ground-based Freedom Guard flakjacks who scanned the skies, searching for signs of these hulking monsters looming over the horizon. Hostage Taker Weapon None. Propulsion Unknown. Despite the fact of the Directorate's growing concern over the increasingly independent activity of the Shadow Hand in Imperium affairs, Imperium field commanders continue to support the cooperative use of the Shadow Hand's hostage-taker vehicles in military campaigns. Their desire to continue in this relationship stemmed in part from their frustration in trying to find a way to respond to the suicide attacks of Freedom Guard martyrs. Representatives of the Shadow Hand had promised the High Command that they had a way to serve the Freedom Guard a taste of their own poison. Few details were offered. When Imperium generals expressed their reservations, the Shadow Hand responded by arriving uninvited on the battlefield with an entire platoon of these evil body-sucking monsters. Demonstrations, such as they were made of a small group of Freedom Guard prisoners being guarded nearby. Almost in an instant, each man was sucked into the dark maw of the humpbacked beast. The officer in charge was incensed. "We were about to question those people," he protested. "Questioning?" responded the unnamed Shadow Hand operative. "It is fortunate for the Directorate that our methods are not so primitive. If you want to know what they knew, oh yes, it's coming across just now." He handed his personal consoles to the dumbfounded Imperium commander. "And now, observe." He gestured toward the rear of the vehicle, where one by one the men who had so recently been sucked in suddenly emerged. Each had a kind of pack strapped to his back. They did not speak, and barely even twitched as they stared blankly outward. "And now," intoned the operative softly, as he gently struck a key on his console. Suddenly the prisoner's eyes shot fully open, and each man spun on his heel and began running at full speed out of the encampment and back in the direction of the Freedom Guard's base. Moments later, loud concussions could be heard from the same direction. The officer in charge smiled at the operative, and the partnership was born.